Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CDL podcast channel. In this episode today, we are going to be reacting to some of the matches we saw this weekend, as well as maybe talking about some potential roster changes for some teams, and then giving our score predictions for week 2 of the qualifiers for Major 2. But before we get into all of that, Kyle, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good. This past weekend, I admittedly did not engage in much Call of Duty at all. I was preoccupied with watching the entire season of Drive to Survive, and then also went out and saw the new Batman movie, which is just unbelievable. I would really recommend everyone to go see it. If that's kind of your deal, if movies are something you like, it's really, really good. But that was almost a 3-hour movie, so I was
Mm.
and plus 8 or 9 hours of Drive to Survive. So I was just like already burnt out on screens for the weekend. So only caught the box scores really, and a couple clips here and there. But yeah, I'm ready to dive into what we're gonna do with some of these teams.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get into it because this past weekend, honestly, you said you didn't get to catch a lot. You didn't really miss much. It was kind of a lot of boring series. And we'll talk about that in a second. But if you guys enjoyed on YouTube, please be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're on the audio platforms, if you drop a follow and a review, we'd really appreciate it. But like I was saying, Kyle, this weekend was a lot of boring matches, a lot of 3-0s, couple reverse sweeps. Your boys in Minnesota pulled off a reverse sweep because of an ultimate troll job by Paris, and just overall a lot of matches that were just quick, done fast, and not even like close maps. Like it wasn't like 3-0s with close maps. It was 3-0 blowouts. Thieves looking horrible. Just an odd weekend. We thought we had maybe some opinions kind of established, and we thought we knew where teams were, and then some of them kind of surprised us, I guess. We can jump into that. I think the first thing we wanted to jump into was a quick CDL points rundown because Kyle and I were talking about this before we hit record on the pod. They haven't really like been too public with the CDL point standings. At least like I haven't seen. I know it's technically been out there, but I haven't really seen much of it. So we wanted to go through it. Starting at the top, Optic Texas just took over the one spot from Faze. They have 105 points. Faze and London tied with 100. Then Thieves and Ultra tied with 60, down to Boston at 6 with 50 points. And then from 7, 8, 9, there's a three-way tie between Florida, Minnesota, and Seattle. And then 10th is LAG with 30 points. And tied for last place, New York and Paris with 10 CDL points each. So really the first update we've seen on the standings as of right now, I think they're listed in order based on tiebreakers. So as of right now, Seattle Surge, first team out. We got Surge, Guerrillas, Subliners, and Paris currently out of champs, but all of them are extremely tight. I mean, based on points, a lot of things could change, but just wanted to give you guys an update on that because we hadn't really seen it much at all this year. I hadn't really seen it like floating around Twitter or anything. So it's something to keep in mind as we start to talk about champ seeding. But you ready to jump into some reactions from the action this weekend, Kyle?
Hmm.
All right, we're gonna jump right into one that a historic performance, I guess you could say, this weekend, but maybe not in a way you would like to see. Jimbo comes in for Paris in their first match against LAG. They get 3-0'd. Not a great series from them, not a great showing. We're like, okay, new team. And then they played against Minnesota and they get up 2-0. Temp is frying. John's having some good maps. Gravity looks great. Jimbo's struggling. Overall in the series, he ends up going negative 68 kills in 5 maps versus Minnesota and drops a 0.49. I'm not 100% sure, but that's got to be at least close to some record for lowest KD in the CDL era for a player. And, the rumors were floating. Yeah, he's on 80, 90 ping. And when I heard that, I was like, okay, like still doesn't excuse a 0.49. But, maybe a little more acceptable. Maybe like as a newer player, he's letting it affect him. But then like somebody from like the CDL behind the scenes says, no, every single player in the series was on about 40 ping. And in some cases, the Paris players were actually pinging better. So then I was like, whoa, this is bad. A 0.49. He was just playing way too fast. He looked like he was just trying to play eights or a challengers match where he could just sprint to every cut and not pre-aim anything. And he was getting cooked. And I mean, I'm going to be honest, he really costed Paris here because I think Temp had like a 1.2. Gravity was in the 1.1 range. John had a 0.9, which, I mean, when your sub duo is giving you a 0.4, a 0.9 is honestly kind of impressive. But yeah, Jimbo, absolutely horrible for Paris. They should have won this series against Minnesota.
Yeah, you would think so, especially after being up, 2-0. You took, obviously, uh, ROKKR can't buy an opening hard point. Everybody knows that. And then
Yeah,
to take map number two, you just, I mean, all you have to do is win one more hard point or, the control. But yeah, you would think that, Paris probably should have closed it out. But yeah, just to historically, I mean, I don't want to slander him too much, but just, a pretty dismal performance. Just in this series alone, negative 52 kills. He looks like me if I got placed into like, the top SR and in this in in ranked or something, just getting cooked, not really knowing where to go or, what to do. So obviously still some teamwork issues to be, ironed out, finding a pace to play that him and John can both agree on, or just like a chemistry. Because obviously this game is fast paced, just based on the movement and how fast the maps play, from point A to point B. But I don't think we saw the best of what Jimbo can bring. But this team, you would think that he needs to turn it around pretty quick in order for this team to have any hope to, win anything really. So yeah, just kind of a tough scene all around.
yeah, and it kind of goes back to speak to. I mean, go back, listen to our last podcast. It goes almost to exactly what we were saying. It's like seems a little odd that you get rid of Fellow completely and don't just like put him to the bench if you want to try this out. And for a team that has seen no success, you saw a glimpse of success with Fellow at the major. You know, you win a match, you play the next match close, and you just dump him without even letting the chemistry in the team maybe get a little better. It just goes to show that, you know, maybe if you make a roster change, keep the player you're benching on your roster just in case things don't go well, especially when that team with Fellow at the majors showed definitely the best potential they have shown this year so far. So you should maybe keep that guy on the roster because now I think they're screwed because unless they like sign Fellow to another contract, which would make them look pretty stupid, they don't have Fellow anymore and they're pretty much screwed unless they want to sign another new player. So just pretty terrible on the part of Paris. And you and I kind of hinted at this. I feel like we were spot on. We were like, hey, it's kind of odd. I don't know that I would have dropped Fellow right away. Like we hear Jimbo's got a lot of talent. And I don't think Jimbo is very well liked because people in the challenger scene were cooking him. I saw like Enable say something about um, like I thought this guy Jimbo, all the casters and like people were saying like he was like dominating the challenger scene, and like a lot of challengers players and well-known challengers players, former pros were like, "Who said he was dominating? Like this guy has not been dominating. Like if anything, Cold Havoc's been dominating. He's been struggling if anything. So sounds like he's not a very well received player, and people were like, "Yeah, we kind of saw this coming." So interesting to hear that because I don't follow the challenger scene all that closely recently, so from what I had heard, I also thought Jimbo was supposed to be an extremely good player. Not saying he won't be, but sounds like he's not very well liked in the challengers community.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting point you bring up. But you wonder how much this is just some pros being salty or some amateur players being salty about maybe uh you know the seeming randomness of people getting brought up. They think that they deserve a shot. Um, Based on numbers and results alone, you would think that Havoc would be the first one brought up, but we just know that these things aren't the way that they are. So yeah, I mean, hopefully it doesn't affect them too much mentally because we know, a lot of the players are on Twitter. They all know what's being said about them, even though they try and pretend that they don't. Um,
Yeah.
but I think this is a team that especially. I mean, I think you more so than me are kind of invested in the success of this team right now. So you would
Yeah.
hope that they're able to pull something together and start taking every other maybe playing closer to 500 baseball, as I like to say.
Hmm.
Like um so I don't know. Maybe he isn't well liked, or maybe he does have some kind of negative stuff on his name, but it's just kind of weird that it's coming out now, when he's getting cooked by 50 kills in a series.
Hmm.
As opposed to, when he got signed, I didn't really see a bunch of rhetoric about like, you know, who like the Conor McGregor, like who the fook is this guy? Like why is this guy getting picked up or whatever? I didn't really see a whole lot of that. Maybe it was behind the scenes, but at least on Twitter and what casual people like us are able to see. Um, I wasn't really following a story like that.
Yeah. And I feel like that would also be like that would be something that probably would stay behind the scenes because nobody's just gonna like publicly hate on a guy when he gets his big break and his big. I mean, if you would do that, that's just weird. If you're hating on a guy for getting his big break that he's been working for, um, but I guess yeah, I'm a little more invested in Paris's success than you are, and it's kind of a shame to see them like throwing away some good performances from Gravity in his first few matches. And Donnie Temp has been a superstar this year. I mean, he dropped another 1.2. Like he's been playing out of his mind. Kind of a shame to watch them waste those performances. And John has been special, but he's been pretty average, like a good enough sub to win with if he has a running mate. But we'll talk a little bit about Paris coming up here in just a little bit when we talk about some potential roster changes we'd like to see from the bottom 8 through 12 teams. I think we can move on to Neptune. Back in for NYSL. They go 0-2 on the weekend. Their woes continue. At this point, you almost are starting to just be like, man, like what to even do with this team? Like feels like they have to blow it up, but it's getting to the point where I'm just like, can they please just like win a hard point or just like win a match? Because like it's getting really sad to watch Clay and Krim be so down bad on Twitter and like Hydra's mental looks to be like shattered on the cams, which I mean, I can't blame them. You have got to be defeated at this point as a pro, and you just can't seem to win a map, and you're just getting smoked, and you know you have a lot of talent. Uh, just demoralizing for them. I'm starting to like at first it was like kind of a meme, like oh NYSL, yeah, they kind of suck, but at this point with these players on the team and like how much of legends they are and how talented we know Hydra and Neptune's been struggling, but he has talent. It's just almost become a sad story that I want it to kind of be over.
Yeah, it's kind of like watching, like a metaphorical, like historic building burn down or something. I don't know, like a fire at a museum or something. Like you have a bunch of like artifacts and that are just priceless stuff that could be lost and tarnished. If you know how much of the legacies of Clay and Krim would be, you'd have to mention this historic way they've gone. Like if this is the end, which I doubt. I still have my reservations on this being the end of them. But if this is the way
Hope
they
not.
go out, you would have to write a chapter in their in their biography about like they couldn't buy a win in the last season when they were consensus hyped up to be a top 4 team. I think everybody had them
Yeah, and if you didn't, you
riding.
had them as a playoff team at least.
Oh yeah, but I mean, like you were just you read off the CDL point standings, and I was just thinking like, if you swapped out like everything seems to be like kind of how we had thought, except for subliners. I mean, to be
Yeah,
completely honest, and maybe Guerrillas are a little bit low right now too. But like, I
yeah,
think we all had, you know, Optic Phase, Thieves, Ultra up there, and then maybe we had Ravens lower, but getting back to subliners, it's just like I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat you are, like, because it's no fun for us too watching a match. Like they're kind of becoming memes of themselves, where it's like, oh, might as well just turn off the stream if subliners are playing because they're, you know,
yeah. It's like old
but
Paris or old LAG.
yeah, but at the same time, it's like, maybe it has a little bit more intrigue to it now because it's such a team. It's a team that has like two legends of the game on it, and I don't know why they're struggling so much. I don't think anybody has a great answer, and maybe that's part of the reason why it's, like, affecting their mentals so much, but yeah, it's getting to the point where it's kinda getting sad, but
Yeah, it
it's
is.
still it's still kinda funny, but, it's more so just, like, exasperation on my part too,
Yeah.
because, they got cooked. I think they lost 3-0, 3-0 this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. Um
Yes, they might have won one map, but either way, it was one map that they won at most.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, no, they did take one off of, Ravens, but yeah,
yeah.
yeah, tough scenes around the New York camp. I
Yeah,
think
they
we're gonna
reverse swept to control.
yeah, I think we're gonna get to them probably later on when we're talking about, if we would do any roster moves, but, uh at least it's providing some content with people.
Mhm.
We're able to talk about it, and unfortunate for them though.
Yeah, and like you said, we'll get more into them in a little bit when we talk about roster changes. Next team, Mutineers, heating up a little bit. 6-0 map count for the weekend over LAG and NYSL. Like we just said, the NYSL win, maybe not super impressive, but I guess for a team like Florida, who tends to just like randomly have terrible matches and lose to teams they shouldn't, and then they randomly beat teams they should, just to see them 3-0 New York and handle business is good to gain a little more consistency. And then LAG, maybe another team that's struggling, but like once again, this is that range where Florida is finding themselves. We'd probably have them in that 7 through 10 range so far this year. So to see them beating two other teams that are down in that range, LAG is probably in that same boat, that like 6 to 8, 6 to 9 range down there with Florida. So to see them 3-0 them is pretty impressive. Florida's kind of heating up. They're really showing that they had the raw skill like we thought, but it's going to be interesting to see them play the very organized teams. You'd think LAG is super organized, but Mutineers kind of beat up on them, and then obviously NYSL. I mean, nothing's going right for them. But Florida goes 6-0 map count. They start 2-0, positioning themselves to have an inside track to get a winners bracket spot here in the next major, which could be huge for them because they're going to need to pile up some points. And like we mentioned, they're currently sitting in 7, but they're only 20 points behind fourth. So they could very easily find themselves jumping up and getting some good seeding heading out of Major 2 if they're able to keep winning some matches and find themselves a winner. So huge week for Florida to get 2 big wins on the board.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really fault them with dropping 0 maps on the weekend.
No,
But yeah,
doing their
like you
job.
said, they do have a bit of a harder road coming up in the next 2 weeks. They're playing some more organized teams.
Play Optic this week.
They still they have Optic, and then in week 3 they have Boston and uh I just saw it, Faze as well.
Yeah,
Um
3 tough matches.
yeah, so you know, I wouldn't be getting too. I mean, temper my expectations a little bit, but it's positive to see these results, and you know, like you said, they're showing that they have the raw skill. And maybe at this point in the game, they can get away with some of that as well to kind of mask maybe some of their shortcomings. I feel like a lot of people have kind of been down on them for oh, they didn't build this team right. They have 3 ARs. How can you have a team with 3 ARs? But I guess beating up on Guerrillas and subliners. I mean, you would kind of expect the subliners one, but maybe Guerrillas to take 3 straight maps off of them. Um, Maybe a little surprising, but
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, good on them. But like we said, they kind of have a tougher road ahead, so kind of temper my expectations over here.
But once again, we can move on from them because there's not a lot to talk about. Just a good weekend from them overall, but it's big time for them to get these 2 wins because you mentioned they play Faze and Optic still in this split, and then Boston maybe looking to be the one that they'll hope to win because obviously Faze and Optic will be tough. But big for them to go 2-0 because you're expecting them to lose those other 2 matches. So if they were even to lose one this week, they're in danger of losing 3, maybe 4 games in this split ahead of Major 2. So as long as they can just find a way to pull out one more win in the next 3, maybe that Boston match, they'll for sure be in winners bracket. There's even a chance if, as long as they don't have terrible map counts, because they are 6-0 right now, that at 2 and 3, if they maybe force a couple game fives, they'll find themselves still as like a 7 or an 8 seed. Which last tournament they start in losers, just to start in winners and give yourself that extra chance uh, to be able to make a mistake and lose a series is big. So huge weekend for them. Hyped to maybe see if they can keep improving. But man, they're going to have to sort out the teamwork because they are just a run and gun team. But hopefully that starts to get sorted out. Next team, Ravens. 2-0 sweep. Super impressive week out of them, especially taking out Thieves. Obviously, earlier they take out New York. Once again, we know the state of New York, but taking out Thieves is impressive, even though Thieves looked a little shaky this week. They do it with Paul X, which I'm sure we're going to talk a little Paul X later when we talk about roster moves and what we'd want to do because the guy's going to find himself on a starting roster pretty much 100%. But they look great. Doesn't even look like they lost a beat without Gizmo. Paul X showing that, maybe he could have taken this roster spot with London. Obviously, London is definitely not complaining with the moves they made because Gizmo has been unreal. But Paul X showing that, maybe one of these teams should have given him a shot right away to start the year because he looked amazing and Ravens continue to look really good. I think at this point, if anybody was still doubting them somehow after the major, you've got to officially say that, Ravens are here to stay as one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the league.
Yeah, I mean, super impressive. Another team that had a super impressive map count. This weekend they only dropped one.
And to
Um,
subliners, oddly enough.
right, and
And they got reverse swept on that map. They were up 2-0 in Gavutu control and lost it.
yeah, so maybe some back to the chalkboard on that to see how that happened, but y-
Hmm.
I don't know. Like you said, Paul X really making a name for himself, or really showing some teams that maybe that they missed the boat on getting him
Hmm.
to start the year. So he's definitely a hot commodity right now. You would say. You would definitely imagine that he'd get picked up.
Probably the hottest commodity right now.
Yeah, that he'd get picked up in short order here for some of these struggling teams, maybe. But yeah, also probably some chip on his shoulder, coming back to play for his old team, and kind of just
Hmm.
maybe turning up just a little bit extra to show them that maybe they missed the spot. Like you said, I don't think this team would have. I don't think they made a wrong move
No.
going with
You're picking
Gizmo instead of
between two great
Paul.
players.
Yeah, exactly. And Gizmo, borderline MVP candidate so far.
Yeah. Unreal in
But
those stage one qualifiers.
yeah, and so
Pretty sure
I don't
Gizmo's
know.
gonna
I
be
don't
back
really
this
have.
week though.
Yeah, I mean that's what it sounds like, because it sounds like they're like, oh, thank you, Paul, like
Hmm.
yada yada yada. And he was on a 2-week contract, so who knows what that situation is. I guess we'll if Gizmo's going to be out for longer, I guess we'd hear something. But yeah, I can't really say anything negative about Ravens.
They look very good. They look to be a staple top 4, top 5 team. Uh, the last question we really have for them is can they get over the hump? Because obviously 2 of their 3 losses this year, they had 1 random loss to LAG in the stage 1 qualifiers, and then their 2 losses are to Faze and Optic, where they looked honestly outclassed by the 2 teams. So the only hurdle and question mark left for London is are they going to be that consistent third, fourth place team, or will they eventually be able to get over the hump? I think some people have kind of like written them off already as like they're not gonna be able to get over the hump. That's crazy to me. I definitely think they're an underdog against a Phase and an Optic, but I don't think it's wild to say that they could take out one of those teams. Like I said, definitely not going to be the favorite in those series, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for them to take that. But we're going to talk about Paul X, I'm sure, a little more when we talk about those roster changes we mentioned a few times. But I also want to give a shout out to him because I don't think people really understand like the mental pressure that was probably on him in that situation. Like he's getting subbed in, filling in for a team. He has to play, New York, whatever, but he's got to play Thieves, who have looked very, very good. And he knows, like, I'm getting into the league here. This is my one shot that I'm probably going to get this year to like be picked up by a pro team and prove that I belong and like put up some stats and like show that I'm a pro level player and deserve to have a roster. It's basically like his trial. Like he got 2 matches to prove he belongs, and he completely showed up. There could be some nerves there. You're like, this is my one shot to really show it, but he showed up and he showed out. So shout out to Paul, and we're definitely going to be mentioning him for some of the rosters that we'd like to move around. Next team, Thieves. Kyle, what the hell's happening here? Uh, Cold start for the qualifiers. Granted, it was Ravens and Optic, 2 teams that I would consider to be better than them right now, ahead of them in the power rankings. I expected them to lose to Optic, but I would say London with their normal roster is the better team. But coming into the week with Paul X filling in and maybe not having as much practice time with a team, they only practiced with them a couple days. You'd expect that Thieves should be able to take them out, but I mean, they get 3-0'd by London and then lose 3-2 to Optic in around 11. Granted, people are saying Optic was kind of testing out their map pool a little bit, but Thieves 0-2, kind of alarming.
Yeah, I mean, kind of sets them back a little bit in my mind. Just from a qualification standpoint, even for the major, because like we saw last time, uh, in Major One, they kind of had an semi unfavorable draw off the get go. I think didn't they play Ultra in the first round and they lost? So they were just
Yeah.
immediately yeah. So they were immediately down in losers and backs against the wall. So and we saw how good the being a number one or number two seed can be.
Mhm.
Just putting you in the advantageous positions. Uh,
Yeah, like we said, 1 seed last major played Boston, and then 2 seed Thieves played Ultra. Big difference.
yeah. So I don't know. It just didn't look like they had it this weekend. I mean, looking at like just a pure from a pure statistical standpoint, like they just didn't have what we come to expect out of the Thieves so far this year. Like especially that 3-0. They kind of got blenderized on that opening Gavudu hard point. It just looked like they couldn't even. I mean, nobody was positive, obviously.
Mm.
I don't know. And then the Optic match, Optic testing out their map pool, so maybe in a perfect world it would have ended sooner than a 3-2. But also in that series, just like the subs were kind of struggling. Draza Envoy were both struggling. And
Optic and Ravens, they seem to be 2 of the top 4 teams right now, and Thieves didn't look like they were on their level. They looked like they were a level below right now, which is alarming because we thought maybe they were trending the other way to get to that level, but they look like they're below that level, the top 4, like, pretty clearly right now.
yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. I would definitely say Thieves are kind of like in that 4 or 5 range right now for me. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that really just speaks to how good Optic is and how we continue, or at least like people like me continue to just kind of like undervalue the Ravens. Even though I am buying stocks, but I'm not like maybe I'm not like that like to the moon guy with the Ravens yet.
Mm.
Just because I haven't seen it. Um, and I just see so much other talent in the league that maybe I'm just still hesitant to go full bore on this team can win a major or something. But yeah, I mean, I think it speaks more to the other teams and then Thieves just having not showing up and playing their best this week. Really, you know, like you were saying last week as well with like the I'm gonna keep buying Optic until they
Yeah.
lose. I don't think it's fair to just sell Thieves off yet. Um, I'm willing to give them some leeway in being able to have a dud weekend or two, but we've seen obviously for seeding and stuff that you kind of got to be on the very vast majority of the time, or else you're gonna get put in losers, or you're gonna have unfavorable seeding to start the majors. So just
Yeah.
you'd hope that they're able to turn it around in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, and they have Minnesota this week, and then in the final week, they have Seattle and LAG, so definitely, like, winnable matches. You would technically probably put them ahead of all those teams in power rankings, but Minnesota's a team that can beat you if you're off on one day. Same with LAG. If you hit them on one of their good days, they look amazing. And Seattle, maybe the turnaround's coming since they beat Faze. You never know, but these are going to need to win at least 2 of these 3 matches to have a chance to get in winners bracket, which is somewhere you'd expect them to be with this caliber of team. Next team, speaking of Surge, they beat FaZe again, which is just so weird. And then they fall to Boston in the other series. They kind of got bullied by Boston in the other series, and then they just happened to beat FaZe in a map 5. That series against FaZe could save this roster, in my opinion. Like, I don't think it can be understated how important that win was because they get smoked by Boston, and then if they would have lose to FaZe, they start 0-2 again. They're on a huge losing streak. But maybe the series against FaZe is what they need for a confidence booster because I don't think any of us have doubted the talent this team has. They just haven't been able to put it together since early in the year. I mean, like, we all know Sib and Pred are extremely talented rookies. I will continue to say it, and people are finally starting to agree with me. Mac has been the best player on their team this year. I know Sib was unreal for the first couple matches, but overall throughout the entire year, even when they've been playing poorly the last few weeks, Mac has been their best player. And accuracy, he's a steady hand leader. We know the talent this team has. They just have been horrible the last few weeks. So to see them beat Faze, hopefully it's a momentum builder for them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say, what to say about this. Like, you know, I won't read too much into just like, oh, they beat Faze, but obviously, beating a team like Faze is like a huge momentum swing, you would think.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, Mac has been unbelievable. I'm starting
probably a
to,
top 15 player right now.
yeah, I mean, I'm starting to come around on that thought as well. That he's by far the best player on this team right now. Um, yeah, I was listening to a little bit of Reverse Sweep earlier today, and they were saying like they were kind of saying like what we were saying a few weeks ago about like, oh, apart from like an accuracy ice up moment like twice, like this team may have fallen apart before now.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, they're able to, they haven't made a move yet. Uh, it seems like this team is gonna stick together at least for now, like we said. But yeah, they did get cooked in that Boston series, so just kind of the dichotomy, and then you come into like this narrative of like, oh, Surge are like the phase killers or whatever.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was more so like a phase didn't really look sharp. Cellium only one positive. I'm sure phase are just like, how the hell did we lose that match or whatever? Like, you
Yeah.
know, we don't like, I don't know. But, uh I'm willing to give Thieves the hall pass. I'm willing to give FaZe the hall pass for the loss.
Oh,
And
for sure.
similar, I'm not willing to totally like say Surge are back as like a top, 5 team now because they beat FaZe. Obviously they're still kind of probably on the outside looking in my eyes. But yeah, that's not a whole lot to break down from that in my eyes, but
I mean, my takeaway from that Phase and Surge series is the classic Aaron Rodgers relax. Like, chill out, Phase. Guess what? They lost 3-2. They're going to be just fine. Surge, you know what? Maybe it boosts my confidence in them a little bit because they take out Phase, but I'm not ready to just jump back on, like you said, the Surge top 5 bandwagon. They still got a long ways to go to climb back into that conversation. But I do think it's a huge moment for Surge because regardless of maybe Phase is testing out some stuff or whatever's going on, Surge just need a confidence boost because especially with young players in their team, we know Sib. People have said he can be a pretty emotional player, let his emotions get the best of him in the past. So for him to get some confidence, win a series like this, and just for the team overall to get some confidence boost going into the rest of the matches, because they're going to need it. I mean, what do they have coming up this week? They have Optic, obviously, very tough match, and then they have LAG, maybe a more winnable match. Then they get Thieves the next week, and that's it. So they have Optic, LAG, and Thieves. Three, I mean, three pretty good teams they got to play coming up here. So to get a win was pretty big for their chances to start in winners bracket. Next team though, speaking of LAG, they split their series versus Mutineers and Legion. Another just like who is this LAG team? They smoke Paris and look amazing in that series. And Slasher finally bounced back and had an extremely good series. He got full streaks in two different maps. He finally looked to be back into form. And then the series before the Legion one, they get absolutely cooked by Mutineers. Like, what is going on with this team? I don't know. Right now, they seem like a coin flip. Uh, I guess I just don't know where to pin this team, but I still feel like pretty good about them finding form. They just need to not lose so many matches while they find form. Like they need to keep getting winners brackets so they can make a run on land eventually. And I hope Slasher's stepping into form because to me, if Slasher gets into form, this team is going to be right back in there competing for like the top 6 range.
yeah, I definitely agree with those points you made. I would have felt better about this team, like about being confident in this team one way or the other, if they had either lost both matches or won both matches.
Mhm.
But instead we're left in this like no man's land of like, this team is kind of struggling for like it's an identity crisis, not in the
Up
terms
and
of like,
down, up and down.
yeah, not in the terms of roles, but I mean, I've written like the scripts for this before, and it's like the consistency is just what's limiting them from, really breaking into that like, like A/B tier of teams.
Mhm.
Because we've seen how good this team can be, and like ASIM being their best player, uh, or most impactful player. Uh, you know, we we've seen the individual series that he can have, that Gunless can have, and like we've seen Slasher kind of like up and down. Now it seems like he might be rounding into form. Um, and Hook has that like go off potential in any map. So, but it just seems like they're losing too many matches, like you said, to really you know be a consistent top six ish team. Uh, so I don't know. I feel like if they would have lost both matches, we would have been like, okay, this is a team that's clearly like on the outside looking in. They really don't have, maybe it's time to talk about roster change or something. Um, whereas conversely, we said last weekend, I think in our predictions last week, we said, uh, this team really needs to look to win both matches this week. And what do? They go out and get cooked 3-0 by Mutineers, and then they come back and
Yeah.
bounce back against Paris, which is like granted it's Paris, but I don't know. I don't really know how to feel about this team yet, and I'd really like to know how I should feel, but they're just so inconsistent right now. Where I don't feel like I have a good like I could say that I'm still like really confident in this team, and I think that's like where my heart of hearts is. But I'm just as ready to get hurt by them and have them be like a 10-11 team again. Um, as I am to have them be like a top 5, top 6 team. So I don't know. Do you have any similar thoughts?
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's like one week I feel like they're top 5 borderline, then one week I feel like they're borderline 12. They're just so up and down. But like you said, if we're expecting them to be that top 6 team, you've got to beat Mutineers and Legion. They handle Legion, but like we view Mutineers as maybe around that same range as LAG, and we view Legion as one of the bottom teams. So like if you're looking to become a top team, these are two matches you just have to find a way to close out. I still, like I said, I think Slasher turned a corner in that Legion series, and I expect him to keep that going forward because Slasher isn't usually held down for too long. He's usually always a consistent player, and we haven't seen that too much from him up until that Legion series. So I'm looking for more consistency out of him. I think he's going to find it. Um, we can move on though to our last thing to talk about for the weekend. Your boys ROKKR split their series. They lose to Toronto, and then they reverse sweep Legion, which we already kind of talked about in the beginning with the ultimate troll job by Jimbo. Um, Speaking of that, I know you didn't get a chance to catch much of the series, but did you happen to get a chance to catch the end of the game one hardpoint when Standy, I mean, might have been Calvin Ridley paid to throw the game?
I did not. Would
Uh,
you educate?
Yeah, so Standy, Tuscan P1, okay, and ROKKR have full control. Uh, and Paris is spawning out church side, like kind of like the backfield by church.
Oh,
You got your
is this where like none of them are in the hill again?
well, Standy is in the hill, but he is literally Black Ops 2 juggling the hill to try to get streaks. So like you got what I'm saying. They have
Yeah,
control of the
yeah,
hill,
yeah, yeah.
and
No,
Paris is
I saw a clip of this. Yeah.
Yeah, and Paris is spawning back church, and Standy is sitting like on the close, like Godheady by you on the church side. And Priesta, mind you, has middle map covered. So at worst case, Priesta's either going to kill somebody that pushes you, or worst case, he's going to be able to call it out if he dies, and like Standy will then know if somebody's pushing. But there is zero chance somebody can push him, you, without Priesta either calling it out or killing the person. And Standy is just jumping out of the hill back and forth, and they're at like 245 to like a 242 lead or something. And Standy just keeps jumping out of the hill to check mid and jumping out of the hill to check mid. And then he would have easily, if he just sits in the hill, they get 250, easy win. But he just keeps jumping out, jumping out, jumping out. And eventually they hit the 240, and then John hits the hill, gets like a two piece, and Paris breaks in and they win because Standy just keeps jumping out of the hill. And then Twitter was blowing up. Aches was saying like, no, he needs to be fined for this. Somebody needs to check for match fixing. That's what everybody was saying on Twitter. Like, and Nabel was flaming him. Parasite was like, what is he actually doing? Like, he made up for it. He fried the rest of the series. But I actually like in recent memory, that is one of the biggest trolls I've ever seen. Like, if you just stand still in the hill and look down at the ground, they win the map. But instead, he's running back and forth, checking something that his teammate has. I think only explanation for it is the comms were maybe a little frantic because you're at that 240, 240 when everybody starts comming everything like crazy, and maybe he got lost in the mix and he didn't hear that Priesta was covering middle or something. But That was outrageous. I couldn't believe it.
God, I just watched the clip on CDL Intel. That makes me that's enraging.
Like
Um,
if they lose that series, that I mean, you got to look back at that map one, and you're like, what are you doing? Like, thank God they were
yeah.
able to reverse sweep for their sake.
Yeah, you would also think that this team is like they have the teamwork and like the ability to calm
Well, and when you
correctly
think of
that
Minnesota, what do you think? Fundamentals.
in team yeah, fundamentals and like the ability to play together and you know I think that's their like Twitter hashtag is like play as one. It's like God,
Yeah,
like come on. Let's learn how to close out a hard point or like, stay on the hill.
it was unreal. I'd never seen anything like it. That was the best like comment I saw. Though somebody said he was like juggling the hill like he was playing his streaks in Black Ops 2, and you just get out, let them take control, and get the points, and keep farming for your score streaks. That
Right,
literally looked
right.
like what he was doing. Um, But kind of back to the point, ROKKR, how you feeling about them? Lose to Toronto, beat Legion. Honestly, didn't look like the role swap had that much of an effect because, I mean, like we said earlier, if it wasn't for Jimbo like absolutely trolling, like if Fellow or even Decimate were still on the Paris roster, Minnesota was 100% losing to Legion in that series. They still almost lost while they were trying to drag Jimbo along in the series. At this 0.49. Like if Fellows there, they 100% lose to Legion there. So the role swap didn't seem to be too successful, at least this week.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what to think of it. It almost feels like they got, it's kind of sad to say that they got gifted a win against Paris Legion of all teams, but like similar to how they beat Optic week one back in Major One, it's like, maybe that like these, quote unquote gift wins or something are kind of giving like lulling them into a false sense of security. Um, where I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be the one banging the roster change drum, but like they're sitting right at that precipice of like, if one or two teams catch fire around them, they could be, dropped out of CDL points quickly. Because it still seems like they're having troubles in hardpoint, and they're no team is like bulletproof in S&D. Like you're gonna play like you're gonna win 3 out of 4 at the very best. Like, you're always gonna there's no way to have 100% success rate in S&D. Even though
Nope.
we give them a lot of credit for it. But yeah, another team that I don't really know what to think. Do I want to say that they should make a swap? I don't really want to. I don't really want to be the one banging the drum. Uh, but yeah, I don't really know what to say about Rocker. Like they definitely got away with one there.
Yeah, for sure. They're another team, kind of like LAG. They're a hard team to put your finger on. But speaking of roster changes, we got one little segment we want to do before we do our predictions for next week and get you on out of here. And that is talking about roster changes. And we kind of looked at the point standings. You got like your top three, your Texas, your Faze, your London, who are clearly not making any roster changes, not considering it. We've got your Thieves, your Ultra, who are 4 and 5, who are up there. I mean, technically, maybe like Thieves after a bad week are pondering something, but we're just gonna say for the sake of this, these teams are pretty set. They're not doing anything. Even Boston has looked pretty good recently, so we're gonna say they're not doing much. And we thought Florida with a 6-0 map coming week, kind of a weird time to be like, hey, time for a roster change. So we're going to leave them out just for time's sake and just, not make the segment super long. We're going to do 8 through 12. The bottom teams, that's Minnesota, Surge, LAG, Subliners, and Paris in order of the way they are in the standings. And we're going to talk about, you know, what should this team do? Is there a player in challengers you're looking at? Maybe there's not a specific player you're looking at, but do you think somebody needs to maybe be swapped out to unlock things? It doesn't need to just be one player. If you think all 4 players on the team should be dropped, Kyle, you go ahead and you call them out. If it's 2, if it's 3, whatever. And maybe there's a couple teams in here that you don't believe need a roster change. Maybe they just need some more time. So we're just going to go ahead and discuss each one individually. I guess we'll start towards the top because these teams might be quicker. Maybe since they're a little higher in the standings, you don't have as much to change. With number 8, Minnesota ROKKR. We just talked about them. You got any ideas for what you do to change? Because they're one of those teams that are, where their peak can be because we saw them win an event with this exact roster last year. But does a change need to happen? Are they ever going to be able to hit that form again?
I don't see. I'm not. I'm not sure if this is their game. Um,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, maybe they just stick it out and hope that, they're building more of like a dynasty legacy rocker team than we're gonna change it every year just based on if we're succeeding or not. And as long as it's not like a dumpster on fire, then maybe they just stick with like at least a core like 2 or 3 players, because it seems like they all really like enjoy themselves and enjoy the teammates and stuff. The only thing I could see like right now in Vanguard, maybe they're impressed by Paul X's performance,
Yeah, for
and
Priesta maybe.
they look like to a Priesta or a, I don't think Major Maniac is uh too hot on the seat right now, just based on like the benefits that he brings in like your search and destroy and stuff. But I think we've brought up Priesta's name before. I think he could be maybe. I mean, if you do make a swap, I think that would probably be the logical pick. I don't like saying it, but just for the sake of the segment, I'll say that maybe a Paul X for Priesta.
Yeah. Here's my initial thoughts on it. I think I'd like to see them stick it out through Major 2 through their home LAN, maybe a little bit selfishly because I want to see this team play on LAN. And I hope they're in winner's bracket when that comes for their home event. But I will say, yeah, you can start to talk about it. And if this team approaches Paul X, and I know Paul X like recently tweeted some like lock emojis, like he got locked into a contract. So maybe by the time this is uploaded or by the time we're done recording, he'll be signed or announced or something. But like if they approach Paul X, in my opinion, I don't think there are 2 teams down here. I don't think Gunless is moving anywhere, and I don't think Sib's moving anywhere. So I think 2 of the teams' flexes are locked in, so Paul won't get signed by those teams. Uh, if Minnesota comes knocking on the door and the other bottom 2, New York and Paris, come knocking on his door, like if you're Paul, you're 100% going to Minnesota unless like there's a huge money difference, which I can't imagine Paris is offering a bigger contract. Uh, so like if you're Paul, you're going to Minnesota because like if you plug into a team for Priesta, and it's like you got attached Standy, Major Maniac, like that team is built to potentially make it to champs, maybe make a run. So like that's definitely where if I were him at least, I'd be choosing that team. But I'm gonna say I think this team should stick it out. Through Major 2 just to see because I don't know that there's any roster change that like immediately makes them better. And like you said, this might not be their game. Like coming up these next few weeks, they've got Boston this week. They're 1-1 because they were able to take out Paris, and then they've got Boston and Thieves this week. Which Boston's a team they could beat. Thieves have really been struggling. Could see them win that one. And then in the last week they get NYSL. So there's a pretty good chance in my eyes that they come out with 2 wins out of those 3 matches, maybe even 3, and they'll find themselves 3-2 or 4-1. And then they get their winners bracket spot in the major. Now, if they end up losing like all 3 of these get losers bracket, it's a different story. But in my opinion, I think they're going to find a way with the remaining 3. I think they're going to win 2, if not 3 of the remaining matches in the stage. And I think they'll find themselves in winners, and we'll see how they do at the major. So I'd like to see them stick it out through this stage and then reevaluate at the end if they struggle.
Yeah, just to finish to clarify, the caveat of mine is like obviously don't make a change right now. I would
Yeah,
say at least through the homeland for them for Major 2.
just because
Stick
we've
it
seen
stick
them
it
have
out. Yeah.
success, like we know it's there.
Yeah, and it really gives you more time to evaluate, you know, to maybe change how they play, or, you hear all this talk about role swaps. I'm not sure if that really plays a huge
Yeah,
impact for this team, at least right now. Like we didn't really see a huge difference. But like we said, teams relearn, or they learn more how to play the game. And so yeah, that would be my thing is, stick it out for now. But if anything, you're looking at like a Paul X or a Priest to swap out or something maybe. But
and
I'd like to see him stick it.
I don't think it can be understated, like how little time they had with this role swap. Like they decided they were going to do it this past week before the matches and maybe got a couple days of practice in and then played 2 matches. Like they haven't had much time. Like maybe they need these next few matches to kind of heat up and get it going. Maybe that reverse sweep of Paris as the guns were heating up was a turning point for them. And we, like I said, with NYSL on the schedule, that should be a win. And then between Boston and Thieves, I would think they'd be able to find one win there, especially with how bad Thieves looked this past week. So think they'll find themselves in winners bracket for the major, and I'd like to reevaluate after that. Uh, Next team, we've got Surge. In my opinion, I think this should be a pretty quick discussion on this team because, in my opinion, no roster change is needed because I'd like to see this team stick it out. I think this is almost like a project year for them. I think, Sib showed rookie of the year talent. There's just no way you're swapping him out. I mean, I guess you can like consider Paul X, but like Sib is one of the hottest young commodities in the league. We know his raw talent is off the charts. Same thing with Pred. He's had his up and downs, but we know he's one of the hottest young commodities in the league. His talent is off the charts. Surge hasn't had a team with this level of talent ever in the CDL. So they're keeping those two guys. Mac's been their best player. He is the most undroppable in terms of just Vanguard, not looking ahead to the future. He's the best player right now. And accuracy is the glue that keeps it all together. I mean, he's the organizer of this team, and I just don't think there's a main AR swap out there. I mean, who's the best main AR in challengers right now? I mean, Jordan General's won 5 cups in a row now, so maybe him, but he's locked into Optic. I doubt that they're moving anything. I doubt they're moving accuracy. So, in my opinion, Seattle needs to stay and continue this roster and see what they can do because there's no clear player to drop because it seems like Sib, Mac, Pred are like building blocks going forward, and you're not going to drop the guy that is the glue to all that in accuracy.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see a logical swap for accuracy, and we. I think I've hit on the narrative a couple times. Like people are saying, "Oh, the three young guys will gang up on accuracy and force them out, or tell the management they want them out or something." But you know, we don't really get to see the behind the scenes stuff. How much accuracy is like just as much of a coach as he is a player, um, or at least a coach from like a
Mhm.
managing personality standpoint. Um, and also like you said, like the glue that keeps the team together. Um, I agree. They it seems like they've really stumbled onto two potential superstars in this league, and Pred and
Building blocks for sure.
Sib. Yeah, and guys that they hopefully want to stick with for a while. And Mac year over year continues to prove that he belongs in the league. I know like a lot of people were giving him shit back in Modern Warfare. They won a land. They New York won their homestand, their online homestand, and then he continued to impress. I think for the most part on that New York team last year. And he got another shot this year, and he's like we've said, he's been like probably like without a doubt probably their best player and probably one of the top like 10 or 15 players in all of Vanguard. Um so and accuracy, you know, glue guy. So I think this team should stick it out as it is. I don't see a logical swap for any of those players at this point, and really I just would like to see them uh you know who knows what the problem or issues are right now, but you would like to see them work through it and you know, hopefully come close to hitting those highs that they were hitting early because that was an exciting team to watch.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about them having event winning potential, and
Right.
then it quickly fell off. Um, we can get into this next team that's 10th in the standings. And I think we can honestly, unless you have some crazy thing to talk about, I think we can honestly pretty much just quick touch on them and then move to the teams, save some time for predictions, move to the teams below them that actually like for sure need roster changes. Because at 10, we've got LAG, and I'm in the same boat as I am kind of with Minnesota. Uh, because we know the potential this team has. There's no clear swap out. I mean, Asim has been their best player. Hard to want to swap him out. Gunless really popped off in that last series when they had this past week and has been very good this year. We know the potential that Hook has. We want to kind of see him continue to be unlocked. He's shown some really good flashes. Then Slasher was really the guy who'd been struggling a lot, but he looked really good for a bounce back. And we know the potential this team could have if they're able to really get organized on the map and put everything together. We know what a machine they could be and how organized they could be. I want to see them at least stick it out through this major two, see another LAN of this team, and then maybe if they really struggle there, time to reevaluate. But I don't want this team to change until post major two if they're uh, maybe have another bad showing at the LAN.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really need to add too much more, but just going back to what we've said before, like we just need this to see this team get more consistent. Because they're not doing themselves any favors by starting in losers. And yeah, it's only been one major land so far, but it just seems like they're still kind of riding that, these waves of like consistency versus inconsistency. So uh, it'd be nice to see him like towards the top for at least one of these lands to really like show what they can do in a full like double elim bracket, as opposed to being like immediately backs against the wall. They have to win every single match in order to survive and advance, as we say.
Yeah, let's see them
Um,
in like a winter semi or something.
yeah, exactly. Or start in that 1 or 2 seed and really like have a full unlocked bracket for themselves to really like maybe they like start off round one playing like a breach or somebody, or like one of these like other teams that we say could be in the middle or something. I don't know. These are just like my stream of consciousness thoughts, but like I agree. Stick it out.
Yeah. All right. On to the two teams that I would say pretty much you for sure want a roster change. I mean, maybe there's a world you say for Paris you don't because you want to see Jimbo get a couple more weeks or something. Uh, First team though, they're technically listed as 11th right now because their map win percentage is higher. Yeah, it's about 1.4% higher. So they're 11th in the standings, and that's New York. What do we want to see done with this team? I think what I've seen the consensus, a lot of people say they want everybody dropped but Hydra. The roster just like blown up. People have been talking about trade scenarios, but I feel like trade scenarios are very tough to get into because this isn't like football or basketball where these are billion-plus-dollar franchises that can just like eat a contract and be like whatever and like just trade players back and forth. Like money's a lot tighter for these teams. They don't have billions of dollars, and like they can't just like trade Crim and Clay to a team or to separate teams and have them eat the contracts they have. Because I'm sure Crim and Clay are probably two of the highest paid players in the league, with like their status. Um, Amongst the pros. I'm sure they're two of the highest paid, if not the two highest behind Scump. Um, so I can't imagine trade scenarios are too easy. Like I said, a lot of people are on the boat of drop everyone but Hydra. I think it's safe to say Hydra is 100% safe. He should be on the roster. I think Neptune 100% has to go. I mean, the chemistry is just shot on this team. It's just not working flat out. Um, I think the other guy, it sounds weird to say because when the Dallas Empire breakup happened, I was on Team Clayster. I thought he should have stayed when they were forced to break up after the champs win. I thought Clay is the better main AR, and he should have stayed. But in this game, Clay has looked very bad. He has just not been himself. And Krim has actually looked pretty good overall, and has been thrown into a lot of tough situations. So I'm kind of in team. I believe you have to keep one of Clay or Krim, and I might be in the minority there, but I think right now I'm team keep Krim and Hydra, and you've got to drop Neptune and Clay. The only thing that makes me hesitate is I do believe that Clay is a better main AR. Typically, he's just been so bad this year. And the other thing that makes me hesitate is Clay is kind of the guy that's brought along Hydra since he came over. So I'm a little bit scared that Hydra would be upset by it. And Hydra's the guy you have to please because he's your franchise player. I'm a little scared that he'd be upset. So maybe I could see keeping just Clay and Hydra and trying to like trade Crim for something, but not exactly sure who I'd go with. I obviously would want Paul X and maybe Havoc. That's kind of what I'd look at. Get a sub to speed it up with Hydra, and Havoc's been absolutely cooking this year. So maybe give Hydra a good slaying, high upside slaying veteran player to go with him in Havoc. And then Paul X has looked unreal. You get him in there with maybe Crim on the main or Clay, whoever you choose, and I think we'd see some improvements out of this team.
Yeah, I like that. I definitely like. It's definitely more reasonable to think that one either Crim or Clay go, and then they just they
I think
cut
for sure Neptune's gone no matter what.
they keep two cut two. And like you said, like these teams aren't like they're not willing to pour like millions and millions and millions of dollars into their CDL team of all things.
Yeah,
Like these orgs, like they're owned by like Andbox or something, or at least that's what I see on their on their socials and stuff. But
yeah.
yeah, it's kind of funny because I just saw something on Twitter about this like earlier in the day, and I was like, just cut everybody but Hydra and ask Hydra to pick up 3 like AM players that he wants to play with or something. Like this year is already pretty much shot, you would say.
I don't know.
Um
You'd say that, but they're only
yeah,
30
yeah, yeah,
points
yeah, yeah,
behind the
yeah.
playoffs.
Right, right, right. Okay, I get that. But like the way they're going, it just doesn't look like a good trajectory. And anything is possible with like with the talent that they have and possibly could acquire. They could go on a massive winning streak if they get the right pieces, but it's clear that you know there needs to be some kind of like kinetic energy here to break this up. It doesn't seem to have worked. Um, Unfortunately for a lot of us, we had thought like, oh my gosh, Clay, Crim, and Hydra, and then Neptune. This just seems like a god squad waiting to be unlocked, and unfortunately, that's just been the complete opposite. Um, I would say Clay is gone and probably retires. Um,
Oh, I hope not.
I just don't see a market for uh, a guy with his, he has been cheeks at this game. I don't think I'm, you know, too out there. I don't think any teams are looking for a player that, is just not good at this game.
And his
Um,
salary is pretty high as well.
yeah, and I mean, especially he comes in with an agenda as well. Like he doesn't come into a team, and what teams really need a main that are like, in the market for a guy like Clay. I don't think too many. I can't really think of any off the top of my head. Uh, and it seems like Neptune is going to be gone too. I like the Paul and Havoc idea. I can't think of too many other people off the top of my head. Like I'm not too plugged into the challengers community. Um, and
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like there's, I don't think there's been too many historic, one for one player
I
swaps.
just got an idea.
I think Clayster was the only player in a one for one swap, way back when. I
Yeah,
can't recall. I heard that on a
Clay for
podcast. So
gunless. Yeah,
yeah,
in
yeah, it's not,
IW right before IW champs.
yep, that's not my original thought. But yeah, so I don't know. I'll be a little bit different and just say drop all three of them and keep Hydra and ask him to go get like three like French speaking players or something.
I have an idea for you.
All right, go for it.
Well, first of all, I just thought of another one for one swap, kind of a high profile one. Formal and Octane got swapped in World War II. But my idea for a play was if you decide Clay, Crim are done with you, personally that's not where I'd go. I'd like to keep one, but if they decide we're done with you, Neptune, I think they're already done with him, and they go three, why don't you just go right on over to that challengers team, Texas Nation, that's won 5 cups in a row. I mean, first of all, that's unreal. They also won the Elite Stage 1. Jordan General, pluck them from Optic. You're my main AR. Uh, and then this is assuming, I forgot to caveat this is assuming Paul X signs somewhere else and they're unable to get Paul X. I'd like them to go after him first and foremost as the flex, but let's say he's signed with Minnesota or Paris. He's gone. He's off the market. Um, I'd like them to bring in Jordan General, boom, main AR. And then you pick 2 other players from that team. Who's their flex in that team right now? Oh my god, I'm blanking. They have
Him?
Brezzy and Havoc on the
Oh, we're talking
subs.
about.
Kismet. Brezzy's their flex right now, I believe, because Kismet's playing. So they have Kismet, Brezzy, Jordan General, and Havoc on their challenger team. That's won 5 in a row. So boom, you put on Brezzy on your flex. French speaker to get that chemistry with Hydra. I believe he's also from France. And then Havoc, who's been frying. So you get Havoc to be the sub duo with Hydra. Jordan General on the main AR, Brezzy to play the flex, and that's 3 of the 4 players from Texas Nation who have been running the challenger scene. They're literally like a dynasty right now in the challenger scene, winning 5 tournaments in a row. So if they're dropping 3, I'd like to get another French speaker in there with Hydra, get a little chem up there with those 2, make Hydra maybe feel a little more comfortable, and then get General and Havoc. Unfortunate for Kismet if he gets left out, but if they're only picking up 3 from that team, somebody has to get left out.
Right.
But
Well,
I feel like that's a way to keep
yeah,
chemistry up too, though.
yeah. That's I like it. I like. I mean, really, any iteration. That's why it's kind of like that sadistic fun that we have with like mid-season roster mania.
Hmm.
Where it's like we're having a lot of fun and content at the peril of 2 of the all-time goats. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we could probably drop an entire hours long podcast on how to fix Florida or our various ideas and talking through it. But
I
I
mean,
mean, like I said, it seems clear that like I said, a kinetic force needs to come break this team up, uh, and it's gonna suck for some people, because like I said, it might spell the end of someone's career, and uh, I don't know. I guess it 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 seems like it's coming pretty quickly. I don't know
it
what you
has
think.
to. Has to be coming quickly. I mean, they can't win a map. They haven't won a hardpoint still, and we're halfway through almost to their matches leading up to Major 2. We might go into the second land if they keep like, let's say they keep this roster, we might go into the second land and they won't even have won a hardpoint. Like, that's ridiculous. And talk about like we can move on to Paris so we can get on to predictions. But talk about such a weird situation. Like if you'd have told me going into this year that we're talking about dropping Crim and Clay for Brezzy in general, I'd have been like, "What are you on?" Like
Mhm.
that's unreal to think. But I really would like that if Brezzy's on your flex, get that French connection with Hydra. You get Havoc in there, who's been the best sub in challengers to run with Hydra, and then you get Jordan General, whose team has just been super successful. So clearly he's directing the troops in the right way, and we know he's a very skilled player. He's been around the pro scene for a long time before the CDL. That'd be interesting to see. But moving on to Paris, this is maybe they're on the bottom, but maybe some people think they shouldn't make a change and they should let Jimbo rock out for a couple more weeks since they just made a change. But I feel very, very strongly that what I watched from Jimbo was a guy who was not ready to be in the CDL. Was just playing at a blistering pace. Looked like he didn't have a slowdown button at all on him, which you need sometimes. In um, in the CDL. You need to know it's good when your sub wants to play at a fast pace to unlock the map and open up the map for other players, but you need to know when to slow it down and speed it up. Something that Zuma always talks about. You need to be decisive and you need to know when to speed it up and slow down. You need to know how to pace with your team. And he looked like he has a lot to learn in that department. I don't know if he's ready for the stage. My opinion, a couple players we talked about already. Paul X, boom. Instant plug in. Temp goes back to full-time sub and John's full-time sub. Paul X is your flex. Gravity is your main. It's a clear connection because Gravity and Paul X were on Wester last year, like the dominant challengers team early in the year. Boom, they've got the chemistry. I feel like the team would get a lot better. In my opinion, they instantly jump current New York and they get themselves in the mix for that 8 spot. Because, like we said, Paris right now only 30 points behind seventh, only 40 points behind sixth, and even only 50 points behind fourth and fifth. Like with a good run, any of these teams in the bottom could still find themselves in the playoffs. Other move I'd say if they strike out on Paulex, he goes somewhere else. Havoc. You bring in Havoc, you bench Jimbo. The roles can stay the same. Temp stays in the flex. Gravity goes in the main. Havoc goes on the sub, and obviously John stays on the sub. Got a decent little veteran lineup there. I think they get instantly better because Havoc is not going to be dropping 0.49s. He's going to be more consistent. But I believe Jimbo's got to hit the bench. He could easily bounce back and start frying and fix his pacing issues. But from what I saw this weekend, I feel like it might be a recurring issue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely still in the wait and see camp. Um, just based on the cavalier nature of completely cutting a guy like Fellow. Like
Yeah.
he's not even a rostered player anymore.
I mean, if they
Um,
would still have him on the roster, I'd just say sub him back in.
yeah,
But
exactly. But like
idiotic move by them in the
you've
first place.
gotta at least play through the LAN in my or and that might seem like you're giving such a long leash to a guy that
Yeah, I
went
disagree with that.
negative 68 kills. Um, but like unless they're willing to go out and spend even more money, um, because you know Paul is going to be getting at least offers from one or two teams. Like,
Yeah,
um,
I would expect New York at
I
least to offer him.
and I wouldn't if I was Paul, I would not take minimum to go play at Paris, and that's just me being like selfish for him because like you know don't go dead end yourself at Paris, even though like Paris does look like they have some upside.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean I'm gonna stay in camp, stick it out for another week or two. Um, but I mean, like we said, their time is ticking as far as like getting points. Even though they are like within striking distance if they win a couple maps, but yeah, I mean, like to me, it seems clear that Jimbo is probably not the answer, but I'd still like to see one more week. I guess I'll retract and say give me one more week.
Yeah,
And if he goes out and is terrible again this week, like decisively terrible, then it's definitely time to, you know, bench or cut him. I don't know what their policy is over at Legion, but
yeah.
and then we can discuss. But I've got to see one more.
Yeah, I mean, we're in disagreement on this one because I'm ready to. I saw enough this week. But I will say with the Paul thing and like you wouldn't maybe go to Paris. Personally, I don't think Paul is only going to get an offer from New York. Uh, and potentially Paris because like looking at the rosters, none of the top five are benching anyone for him. I could maybe see a world where people have been really calling for TJ's head, where Boston could think about it if they want to be proactive, but I don't see that happening. I don't see Florida making a roster change after this week. I don't see Minnesota making one this fast. I don't think Seattle or LAG are. Like I feel like none of the teams in the league are making a roster change this week except New York and potentially Paris. And I don't think Paul's going to sign on unless he gets a guaranteed, like, hey, we're going to sign you on, you're starting. So I don't know that there actually is that much competition unless he's willing to wait for another team to maybe blow up at the major and like sign with them. I feel like his only offers this week will be New York and Paris, as bad as it sounds. But like we said, two of these bottom teams with Sib and Gunless, they're set. And I don't think Minnesota's quite ready to make a roster change, like in their eyes. So I feel like his only offer besides Paris, if they offer him, would be New York. So they might have a little bit less competition than you'd think, which might allow him to sign there. But that's it for potential roster changes. We could jump into predictions and get everyone out of here if you're ready for that.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, you want to give a score update? I know we were both pretty abysmal this week for pick'ems. I went bold on some series. Looks like I got 4 wrong, or not 4 wrong in total, but 4 where I got negative points because the team I picked got swept. You had some negative points. Just seemed like both of us struggled. We had one map prediction correct, and that was the first series where I predicted London over NYSL. That was the only correct map score for either of us.
Yeah. So points update. I'm sitting at 38 points, and you are sitting at 29 points. So we're at a 9 point um difference. Yeah. Some you had 4 maps or 4 matches where either the team you picked got swept or reverse swept. So that was
Yeah.
it kind of negated your correct map count prediction for that opening London New York um map, or like any advantage you gained out of that was kind of wiped away.
Hmm.
But yeah, not a great week for either of us. But yeah, so that's where we're at, 38 to 29. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely some oddball matches this past weekend.
So weird. All right. You ready to get in, see if I can make up some ground on you? We've got we always seem to say it, but we've got some exciting matches in my opinion this week. Got a couple bottom feeders playing each other at some point. We got a couple top dogs playing each other. Um, First match though. The two European teams, not European rosters, but the teams geographically located over in Europe. London versus Paris. Uh, This is an interesting one to me because I do feel like if Paris does make a roster change and brings in a Havoc or a Pollux, I could see this being a 5-game series. But if they have Jimbo in, his fast pace might work better against London than most teams because of how fast London also plays, where they're just like so break heavy and hit everything so fast that maybe he would struggle a little less. But unless some pacing issues get sorted out with this Paris team, I just don't know if there's a way that they find a map. I'm going 3-0 London.
I'm gonna go 3-1 London. Uh, I just I don't know. I like to say that temp and gravity could drag this team along to one map. But I definitely see a 3-0 in the works as well. But I'll go ahead and give Paris one map.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'd be shocked if Paris finds a way to win this one. Honestly, regardless of who's playing, I guess technically, I don't know if they've announced that Paul's gone. They pretty much did. It doesn't really matter. Paul or Gizmo here. I still see them smoking them either way. Uh, Next match, rematch of the major round 1 of Major 1, Optic versus Seattle. What are you thinking here? Optic looks like they've taken over as the best hardpoint team in the game from Thieves when they 100-point clubbed them last week. Seattle obviously was kind of on a downfall. Maybe they turn things around with the win over Faze. Where are you leaning here?
It's a tough one. Will Optic play another like let's expand our map pool, or like I guess that was kind of a narrative. Like Optic was like, they played Desert Siege, which is not one of their maps. Uh, or will they button it up and go for just a quick 3-0 or something? Or just veto maps that they don't like to play. I don't know. I'd like to give Seattle one map, one or two. But I'm gonna be sensible and go Optic 3-1.
Okay, that's where I was leaning as well. I'm pretty much in camp pick Optic until I see them lose, kind of like I was with Faze.
You brought me
Basically
over
pick
to
them.
that camp.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see, in my opinion, right now. I don't think there's any question that Optic are the best team right now, and Seattle is such a roller coaster that like unless Optic is playing like a London or a Phase or even like a Toronto, like those are the only realistic teams in my opinion to pick them to lose to. Not saying that like Seattle or like they play Florida, those teams could beat them. They're still CDL teams. They're still good teams. Like they have a good day. Optic could lose to realistically almost anyone in the league right now, besides maybe like a Paris and a New York. They could realistically lose to anyone, but there's no way I'm picking them to lose to any of these teams because it's like picking against FaZe like in all of Cold War. Like, yeah, they're bound to lose a couple matches here and there, but they're far and away the clear best team. So you're never going to pick against them. And until Optic shows some cracks and maybe starts to slow down, I'm not going to pick against them. So I'm agreeing 3-1 Optic over Seattle. Would like to see Seattle have a productive series and make it close, though, to show that the upward trend that we think they could be on after their win isn't a fluke. All right. Big match here, Kyle. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be a Minnesota fan in this because, like we said, I am going to Major 2. I will be in attendance with a couple of my buddies, and I want to see the home team in winners bracket because I hope, like the first event in Minnesota, the kickoff for MW, they had a pretty crazy atmosphere. Like Minnesota fans showed out for the team, so kind of like they had for Optic in Texas at Major 1. I want to see a big crowd from Minnesota and show out and really cheer for the home crowd because it's kind of creates a cool atmosphere, especially for a team not named Optic to be getting loud cheers makes it kind of cool. Uh, so I'm going to be rooting for Minnesota in the series, but am I picking them? I am. I'm picking a 3-2 Minnesota over Boston.
Oh, I was not expecting that.
No, I just feel like Boston people are really up on them because of the way they looked against LAG, but I still do think like they're not like some world beater team. I feel like, in my opinion, Boston and Minnesota are like deadlocked at about the same spot in my head. They're teams that I think have high ceilings, but also can kind of bottom out a lot this year. I just think Minnesota is going to be a little more fundamental, and they're going to ice up in a map 5 and get to 2-1 ahead of their match with the LA Thieves. So I'm going with your ROKKR 3-2.
That's nice. I was kind of it kind of threw a spanner uh into my prediction here because I was gonna side with you on Boston, in like a 3-1 or something, but now it feels kind of sacrilegious to be picking against Rocker when you're siding with them.
Hey, I'm even admitting to you that I'm cheering for him. I
Um,
usually don't talk about who I'm cheering for in a series. I sometimes have
yeah,
my
yeah,
teams
yeah,
I like, but I'm even saying I'm cheering for him here.
yeah. That's totally wild. You caught me totally off guard here. So I'm gonna go ahead and agree. But I'll go a 3-1 map count.
Okay.
Uh, but I'll go with Minnesota. But I don't know. I Boston are just like kind of that enigma, one of the enigma
Yeah.
teams right now, where it's like they, either Capstone turns up and drops like the most CDL kills on a single map, like Mister Bowcage, or
Yeah.
or they just they kind of fall flat. So I don't know. But I'll go ahead and Minnesota 3-1.
Yeah, for me, Boston are that weird team right now where like they're like the dwellers in the middle. Like if they play any team from like below Ravens, because in my mind, I think the top three are pretty clear right now. I think Optic, Phase, and Ravens are your top three with how Thieves have looked, and we need to see more out of Ultra, more consistency in hardpoint specifically. I think like when you drop below the top three, Boston are that team that I can see beating like Thieves Ultra down. I can see them. I'm picking Thieves and Ultra over them, but I can see a world where they're able to beat those teams. Like I wouldn't be shocked, but they're that team that to me I just can't see them touching like London Faze or Optic right now. I just think they'll kind of get outslayed in respawns, and it'll be a tough series for them to win. Uh, they're like that weird middle dweller team, but for some reason, I think Minnesota might turn a new leaf and start to show out a little bit because I think they know they love playing with each other so much, and I think they know that roster changes are potentially on the horizon if they flop this week. Uh, so I'm kind of hoping and willing it into existence that they're in winners bracket in Major Two at home. Uh, Next match, though, we've got a very intriguing match. I believe this will be the match that kicks off the Saturday matches. Right away, we hit it with London versus Atlanta. Uh, Pretty crazy match. It's probably a match between your second ranked and your third ranked team in whatever order, because maybe some people are starting to throw London up with a phase loss last week. Probably the 2 versus 3 team. A huge match for seeding because Atlanta is 0-1 and London 2-0 currently. So if they're able to take out Paris, then win this, they could have a potential to lock in the 1 seed, depending on what Optic does and what some of the other undefeated teams in this stage currently do. But where are you leaning for Faze Ravens? It's an interesting one.
I I think I want to take a flyer on Ravens here.
Okay.
Um, I think they might smell the blood in the water right now as far as like Major Two goes. With Faze dropping one map or one match in week one, maybe they're seeing a path to the 1 or the 2 seed. Um, so I'm gonna and we've seen Faze. Maybe they're still trying to like refine to their form. It seems like a little bit. Uh, so I'm gonna go ahead and take Ravens. 3-2.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that out of you. Twitter comments, Alfie, if you're listening, get hyped. Show some support to Kyle. I know you're always like, man, Kyle's hating on Ravens there. Kyle picked Ravens just for you. Kind of crazy. I wasn't expecting you to do that, but when we look ahead, I wanted to talk about this when I saw this series. When we look ahead, London or not London, excuse me, FaZe lose last week. They've got Toronto and London this week. Those are 2 tough matches. Like, is there a world where FaZe is 0-3 to start a qualifier? Personally, there's like almost no way. In all likelihood, they are 2-1 because they're probably the favorite in every match they play right now, except for against Optic. But like, is that crazy to think that there's a potential world where Atlanta is 0-3?
I don't
I don't know.
know.
It's not crazy. Like Toronto and London could beat them.
It seems like the trolls would be out in full force, like,
Yeah.
nonstop Abezy, I can't hear you memes and stuff, like,
It would be wild though. Like it's usually you'd be like there's zero chance, but considering they're playing 2 of our top 5 teams this week, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Mhm.
Um, I wanted to pick London, but I kind of want to gain some points on you, so I'm going to go Atlanta. 3-2. Uh, to me, I feel good enough to just flip to Atlanta 3-2 just because of the fact that in my opinion, I think uh Atlanta's probably still the favorite in this series cuz right now I'd still like I find it hard to believe that, Atlanta, they lost the major and then they lose to Seattle. I don't think they're on some kind of slide or anything. Still think they have a very easy potential to come out and win major two. Um, I feel like this is a point where I can make up some points on you, and to me, this is almost a coin toss series. So I'll choose Atlanta on the other token, 3-2. All right, now we've got we go from a matchup of maybe the 2 and 3 teams to a matchup of 11 and 12. New York, Paris. This is a weird one to predict right now because I think we both probably say that New York is going to have a new roster or maybe some swaps by the time this match happens. And potentially, you never know, Paris could have a swap as well. So this is an odd one to predict, huh?
Yeah, this is really, really weird, and I can't really preface it by saying like, "Oh, well, if this move happens, then my pick is this," but, you know, we're sitting here Monday night, I gotta pick as the teams stand right now. Um, I'm gonna give Subliners uh a win here. I'm gonna give
Really?
them
As they stand now, you'd pick subliners?
I don't know. I mean, this is just so hard. I mean, you have Jimbo -68 versus like Hydra with no or Hydra playing with like 3 broken piano keys or something. So I'm not exactly. I don't know. I'm just gonna go with what my gut says. Uh, and maybe I'll switch. Maybe I'll be Paris. I don't know. Go ahead and give me lock in Paris 3-1.
Okay, because when you started out with the like, if we're picking on current rosters, I thought, oh, that's 100% Paris because right now, like, Paris has actually shown us something. Like, they were up 2-0 on Minnesota. They won they won one match at the major. Looks pretty solid. Like, they've been the team that's actually shown us some potential, and New York has been on the free fall. So, like, if I was picking based on current rosters, I'm definitely going Paris, but I'm gonna just go on a limb and say New York's gonna make a change. I think Paul X will be in the lineup, maybe somebody else. So I'm gonna think that New York's gonna make a change. I think it's gonna make them a little better, get a little honeymoon going. So I'm gonna go New York in a 3-1 fashion, and I'm kind of banking on roster changes because, like we said, we can't really put a caveat in there to like if this happens, I'll do this. If this happens, I'll do that. I'm thinking New York's gonna make a change, and in that case, I'll go with them 3-1. Uh, if they don't make a change, I'm ready to hold the L because I think if the roster stay the same, Paris is going to win. But I'm going to go on a limb, say New York makes a change, they win 3-1. All right. Florida versus Optic. I pretty much stated what my theory is on Optic right now, unless they're playing a top team like a Faze, a London, where I'll consider picking them. But I feel like I got to pick them to beat Florida. Um, I think Optic for sure wins the search and destroy. I think they'll win the control. If they eco challenge on Bocage map one, I could see a world where Florida wins because that's like the one map they win. But I don't think they'll do that. I think they'll veto it out and be smart. Try to play Florida on maybe like a Berlin or something that requires a little bit more rotating. And Optic wins 3. What did I go against Seattle? 3-1.
You did.
Okay, I'll go 3-0 here against Florida.
Dang, I was gonna say 3-0 as well. Yeah, I mean, I just think Florida might run into, a little bit of a brick wall here.
Pun intended.
A brick wall that is green in color. Um, so yeah, unfortunate for them, but they're running into the best team in the game. Uh, like I could see this being just like a quick affair. Um, you know, like a maybe like 100-point clubbish, but I don't want to get too crazy here. But yeah, I'll say 3-0.
Okay. Definitely a series I could see going a lot more the distance, but at some point there's got to be some 3-0s. There's a lot last week, so both picking Optic 3-0. Pretty interesting there. Another interesting series here. Boston, Toronto. Toronto, they've had their struggles in hardpoint recently. Maybe looked a little bit better against Minnesota, getting a map one win on Gavutu against them. Boston looked extremely good against LAG last week. I don't know. Where are you leaning on this one? I feel like I'm definitely leaning Toronto because I do think they're the better team, but Boston has that upset potential. Like I said, against all teams not named Optic Phase London, in my opinion, Boston has that upset potential, which is why I think
Yeah,
they're going to extend this series. So I'm going to go a map 5, but goes in favor of Toronto.
yeah. This is I think we're gonna have methods on revenge from that getting knocked out of the major one LAN. Um, they're kind of like their Cinderella
I guess, yeah, I
bracket
didn't think of that
run.
storyline. Yeah.
Yeah, their Cinderella run came to an end at map 5. I think it was like around 10 or something.
hmm
They definitely showed the ability to extend, and I'm gonna go with the willpower of Zinni.
Okay, I don't hate
And
that
that
pick.
and then maybe some Neurocapsule magic and TJ thrown in some S&D performances or something.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna go ahead and give I'll go game 5, but I'll give Boston the
Okay.
the win here.
I don't hate that at all. I think it's definitely realistic. Boston is that team that has that upset potential because I feel like they're always going to be good in the search and destroys, and then in the respawns. If Capsule and Nero could pop off in the respawns, like we saw Capsule do on Bocage with his 54, set the high for kills on Bocage, 60, 80 Ks, something ridiculous like that. If we see those two pop off, they can find a way to upset a lot of teams. So I don't mind the pick at all. Uh, Then we head into the next match of Seattle versus LAG. Uh, you and I have been punished a lot of times this year for putting our faith in LAG. Two teams that maybe you're a little more down on because Seattle's been so bad recently. And LAG has been so unpredictable. Like we said, basically a coin flip if they win their series or not. Just so random. I am going to side with LAG here, though. It's tough for me to pick them in a 3-2 because they've been like the anti-ice team. So I'm kind of trying to decide between a 3-1 and a 3-2. Where are you leaning here?
Yeah, this one's tough for me. It's like, do we want to say Seattle is like right back to going, 0-2 on the weekend, um, versus like LAG, which is like this other team in a tenuous spot. Uh, it's LAG's one match, I believe, of the weekend. I'll go
Yeah.
ahead and give it to Guerrillas, but I'm gonna say Seattle can extend it to a game 5,
Okay.
but Guerrillas take the game 5, so I'm gonna go 3-2 Guerrillas.
Okay. I'm kind of in that same boat, but for some reason, I feel like if it does go to a game 5, I feel like Seattle will ice it out. So I'm gonna go 3-1 because I do think LAG is gonna win this. I really have been talking about the bounce back they're gonna have and how I think they're gonna turn things around for so long, and hopefully that happens this week because I've been kind of harping on it for a while. So I'm gonna go LAG 3-1. But this is a of the series we've picked so far, this is one of the tougher ones to pick, in my opinion. One of the toughest few that we've done. Uh, Second to last match of the weekend, though, we end with two pretty good matches. Minnesota versus Thieves. Interesting matchup here because as we've seen, Thieves, have been that maybe not the best hardpoint team in the game anymore, but for a while, widely regarded as the best hardpoint team in the game. Minnesota, top statistically in a lot of categories for search and destroy. So two kind of opposite teams. Expect LA Thieves to potentially bully them in the hard points. Expect Minnesota to be able to handle the searches since they've been so good in search and Thieves have been so towards the bottom in search. And then honestly, I think it's going to come down to control. Um, I don't know. What do you think of the series? You rocking with your boys in Minnesota?
Unfortunately not. I think that Thieves are due for a bounce back weekend. Um, I just think, yeah, the gap in uh hard point is really going to set this series apart. So I'm going to take Thieves in a. It almost seems too perfect to take them in a 1-3-4, and then you give
Mhm.
Minnesota map 2 search. Um, but yeah, I just as much as I want to say that you know ROKKR could hold a flame to them and really like push them, push them, push them. Uh, I'm not sold on Thieves being like garbage yet. Uh, Even though they had a tough weekend this past go around. So I'll go ahead and say Thieves 3-1.
Yeah, I mean, I actually honestly when I saw this one, I was thinking about picking Minnesota winning 2-3-5. Um, I just really feel like Thieves is, like I said, clear hardpoint advantage, Minnesota clear search advantage. I feel like it is definitely going to be a Thieves map 1. I think they'll probably play Gavutu because Minnesota seems to like that map since they do have 3 players that like to use an AR. And obviously, we know Thieves is never going to turn down a chance to play Gavutu. So I feel like that's going to be a map 1. I feel like that goes Thieves' way. I don't think the map matters. I think map 2 goes Minnesota's way. Like I said, I think the winner of the control has a huge advantage because I think Thieves might need to be up 2-1 because I don't know that they can win a map 5 if they force one. Uh, Whereas Minnesota, they just need to find a way to win a respawn to force it to a map 5, and then I believe they're going to win. I kind of want to pick Minnesota in a 3-2 here, but I'm going to go Thieves 3-1. I'm going to agree with you. I really can see a world where Minnesota pulls us out 3-2 through 2-3-5, and I really wanted to pick it, but I think them winning against Boston, finding a way to get to 2-2, and then having a date with NYSL next week to potentially lock up winners bracket spot seems more likely. So I'll go Thieves 3-1. It seems odd to think Thieves could start 0-3 with a loss here. All right, you ready for the last match? Kind of a banger here, Atlanta Toronto. Had some rough series last week overall. So to see like a London Atlanta, Atlanta Toronto, even like Boston Toronto. really even Boston, Minnesota. There's some good series this weekend. We're wrapping it up with Atlanta versus Toronto. Uh, I think I'm still leaning Atlanta here. We saw them really kind of have their way with Toronto at the major in a 3-0 fashion. I don't know that it's going to be a 3-0 this time. I think Toronto will find a way to take one of the maps. I really could see them taking anything hardpoint, search, control. I feel like the search or control is more likely since they've been struggling so much in hardpoint recently. So I am going to lean Atlanta in a 3-1, but I think Toronto finds a way to take one of those maps.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement on Atlanta. I just think that Toronto will be able to step their game up. Uh, being that they're going against Faze, they back in Cold War they were the only team that could really hold a candle to Faze. Um, for the most part, and I think they'll find a way to elevate to push it all the way to a game five. But I can't to see. I have Atlanta losing to Ravens, so I can't see Atlanta losing two matches in one weekend. So I'm going to go ahead and give it to Atlanta 3-2.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the most likely scenario we're ever going to have, or the highest percentage scenario we're ever going to have for Atlanta to start 0-3, though. Considering they did lose to Seattle, I probably would never pick them to lose to Seattle again, but they did lose to them, and now they have two of our top five teams in London and Toronto, like I mentioned. So probably the highest scenario, right, that we ever have to see Atlanta potentially go 0-3. Uh, Chaos would break out if Atlanta was 0-3 and had a potential to start in losers bracket. Could you imagine, Kyle, if Atlanta somehow loses two this week and finds themselves potentially in losers bracket for the major? Like,
I
sorry
I
for the
I
team that loses their first round match and has to go down and face them.
I can't really imagine it. So I mean, it's kind of wild
Yeah,
to even bring that up. I mean, that's when, you start getting the people you get the early the Hawks would be circling saying that they need a roster change or some
that's
crap like
ridiculous,
that,
but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because like I don't think we've seen Simp and Abezy at their best this year, and that's kind of scary to think.
Well, yeah, and you know how good they are when they lose one match against Seattle and people are like preying on their downfall and saying they fell off already because you've literally had not even a chance to say that they're like on the downfall because they've been so good. Like in MW, that team, like Faze didn't end up winning it all, but they were like in every final. And then obviously in Cold War, clearing away best team in the game, and no questions asked. They won like what 4 of the 6 events, if you include champs. And then this year, once again, they start out the year. They look insane. They go undefeated in qualifiers, make it to a grand final. Like you've had no way to criticize them since they teamed. Even they win champs the first year they're together in BO4. Like you've had no way to criticize them though. So it's just crazy. People, uh, like you said, if they do start 0-3, people are going to be circling vultures and like ready to call for roster changes because they've never been able to hate on Simp and Abezy in a justified way because I mean, let's face it, Simp and Abezy have dominated your favorite team. No matter who your favorite team is, they've dominated them since they've started teaming in
Mhm.
BO4. So people are hungry, I feel like, to hate on them, and that's what we've been seeing on Twitter. But you got anything else to say before we close this out? You got anything down bad sports to talk about? I know the MLB resolved the CBA issue, so you can't really be down bad.
Yeah, so I was gonna say that it's good to see them that they were able to get some concessions from owners. It seems like everybody is, at least tentatively happy for now. They're gonna play a full 162 game schedule. I think they're gonna possibly have some double headers, which are those like 7 inning games that they
Hmm.
play. So it's not perfect, but you know that's uh that's already there. We have March Madness starting this week. I think there's like 16 games on Thursday and Friday, and then another 8 games on Saturday and Sunday each. So it's just um, you know, a like a really like a long weekend laden with like basketball games starting every like half hour or something. So I guess I'll be down bad about my inevitable bracket busts that happen. Like it seems like, you always think that you're the smartest guy going into it, or you're like, yeah, I have the best bracket, but then you look at your final four and it's like 4 1 seeds, and it's like, well, that's not gonna happen. Uh it's kind of like I saw a clip the other day when if you've ever seen Shrek when he closes the book, he's like, "Well, that's never gonna happen." Or, so yeah, I mean, I guess I'll be preemptively down bad about my brackets being
You're just
busted by the
expecting it.
by this time next week. I'll be like at 50. I'll be in like the 50th percentile. So, uh, yeah, I guess to avoid having to discuss it next week, I'll just say it now. But yeah,
Yeah. Uh, I don't really have much for this week either. When you're mentioning brackets, I admittedly am not much of a college basketball fan.
oh, neither am I.
I'm the classic. I watch March Madness and that's it. Like I have not watched a regular season college basketball game this entire year. But I'm a big basketball fan in general. I'm a really big NBA fan, and I just love basketball. So like March Madness and the excitement and all the game winners and all the craziness that goes on and like the Cinderella stories. I'm all for March Madness. I definitely consume a ton of that. But I swear the people that don't watch as much do better in their brackets. Like one of my buddies from college, like his sport is like college basketball, college football. Like he doesn't even really watch pro sports. He loves college basketball and college football, and like he studies all these teams. He like feels like he knows so much. He like picks all these crazy upsets. And I swear to you, he finished like dead last or second to last every year in our college pick 'em because like he overthinks it. And I'm like, hey, I've been hearing a lot of people talk about this 12 seed. They're apparently pretty good. I've been hearing a lot of people talk about this 10 seed. You know, they're really good. I'll pick them to go to the Sweet 16 and like uh you tend to pick more chalk when you're not trying to like know every team so well and pick a bunch of upsets. I mean, if you pick most of the higher seeds, odds are your bracket's probably going to be pretty decent because most times the higher seeds win. There's always the one lower seed that makes a run, but like it's crazy. I swear the people that like know way more about it do worse because they just like overthink everything. But I'm probably gonna be in the same boat as you. Probably will look at my bracket next week after the first couple rounds and it'll be right all over the place and look horrible. But I'm excited for that next week. It's always a fun time of year.
Yeah, I mean, just a quick closing thing. I was in a bracket one year, and my buddy's sister won it because she picked the teams that she liked the logos the most.
Yeah, like it's
So
so
it's like,
random.
yeah, shouts to your friend for, being like investing hundreds of hours into researching all these crazy like 13 seeds or something, and really they get blown out in the first weekend. So yeah, there's really no method to the madness,
I
so to
remember
speak.
last year he had like I think it was Colgate. They were like a 13 or 14 seed. They're actually playing the Badgers in the first round this year as a 14 seed. But last year they were like a 13, 14 seed. I believe it was them. And he was like, this team has like crazy free throw percentage. They have all these like things going for them. They're going to be such a great team. I'm picking them to like go to the Sweet 16. Like they are the upset team. I'm pretty sure they lost by 30 in the first round. And he was like hyping them up like he was the smartest guy ever. He knew they were going to move on, and they got killed in the first round.
Yeah.
Whatever team it was, I think it was Colgate. But like
Yeah, you can't trust a team that's named after a toothpaste.
yeah, exactly. I hope we can't trust them. I hope the Badgers don't get first rounded by them, but that would be a really Badgers thing to do. Uh, but we'll see what happens. You got anything else before we wrap this one out?
No, I'm ready to send these people off to bed.
All right. Uh, that's gonna do it for this one. We obviously talked a lot about the previous matches, got into our predictions. If you enjoyed this one on YouTube, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Drop your predictions down below. We love hearing from you guys. Been getting a lot of new engagement from new listeners as well as old listeners. All the engagements, we love to talk to you guys down in the comments. So we'll look forward to talking to all of you guys. If you're on the audio platforms, be sure to leave a review on there if you enjoyed. Drop a follow on there if you're able. We really appreciate it. That's going to do it for this one. We will see you in the next one when we're discussing the matches from the previous weekend and doing predictions already for the final week of qualifiers next week. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.